Welcome to the People Teaching People podcast. Joining me on the podcast is Tara Stewart. Tara is the founder and CEO of Noble Technology, a Canadian-based tech company where she's mindfully reimagining the role of technology to prioritize human connection and well-being. As a mother of three, Tara faced the same dilemma so many parents do: when, how, and whether to give her kids smartphones. With societal pressure, the need for connectivity, and no healthy alternatives in sight, she decided to build a better option on her own. Her entrepreneurial determination led to the birth of Noble Technology and its first product, BE.connect, Canada's first child-safe, senior-friendly smartphone. Now taking pre-orders, BE.connect is designed to empower families without the pitfalls of addiction, surveillance, or manipulation. Earlier this year, Tara was selected among the top 30 startups in the prestigious pitch competition at Web Summit Vancouver, Canada's largest tech conference. Tara is a sought-after digital wellness lifestyle promoter, educator, and advocate for responsible innovation. She serves as chair of the Noble Alliance for Digital Wellness and Tech for Good, a Canadian advocacy group influencing tech policy, education, and design standards. She is also the tech, health, and wellness expert for Digital Wellness magazine. Tara's vision reaches beyond tech products. She's leading a movement to show that technology can align with the values that truly matter: wellness, trust, and meaningful connection in an increasingly digital world. Thank you so very much for joining me today, Tara.
Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And first of all, I love the concept, what you're leading into, always talking about education and the need to constantly be learning and growing and how that can shape with all of us. And anyways, I'm really happy to be here because it's such a big topic right now as well, in terms of with technology, how it's advancing, what's going on, and the fact that we are now forced into a constant state of learning. And, so it's a very timely conversation, and I'm very happy to be here with you.
Yes, it is so timely on so many levels. And this opportunity to chat with you just piqued my curiosity because it resonates with me so much as an educator, but also as a mom of three teenage boys navigating this world where tech is so much a part of everything that we do. But I'm curious about you and how you kind of came to be doing what you're doing now. So you started out with a career in PR, and now you're the founder of Noble Technology. So there's a shift there. And I'm curious what sparked that shift for you and what that learning curve has been like for you along the
Yeah.
way.
So it was accidental. How's that? As a parent, and most parents today, we all struggle with this juggling technology with our kids, smartphones, what to do with them. So really for me, what it began with was just that I was looking for a smartphone alternative that would be safe for my kids, that wouldn't tether them to their device. So really, I was just concerned about it, wanted to try to find an alternative, couldn't find anything, and ended up taking a bunch of pile of old phones that I had to this engineering firm I found in Calgary. And I just went to them and I was like, what can we do with this? How can we make this better and healthier? And I just want it, to also be something that my kids want to use. They're cognizant of the fact that they want to look cool. I didn't want to give them a flip phone anyways. And so then as I started going down that path and figuring out how we can make this the way that I wanted it, so many of my friends started coming to me and saying, well, once you get this done, I want one too, and oh my gosh, we need this. And then really it came into the fact that this is a really big opportunity business wise, in that there's a huge demand for something like this. And it also appealed to me in that as a female, I think we're all just drawn to entrepreneurship that has social impact. And so for me, I'm passionate about it. The more I dove into it and the more I learned about it, it's a fascinating world. I actually loved learning about tech, but also the advocacy side of things. What are our digital rights and the human rights infringements as we advance into technology, how it's constantly changing and how it is permeating our lives. And, it's a big learning curve, and I love to learn. And yeah, and I got into that world of tech and discovered too that I just really thought it was cool, which is strange. Who knew?
Who knew? And it is so interesting how often we stumble across things by accident or because of those questions that come up in our own circumstances. And if you look back, can you remember what your first phone or piece of technology was?
Yeah, I can remember I was living in Germany at the time, and it was like, the one where you had to push all the buttons to text, and it was uber complicated. There was no map or anything like that. I mean, it was just your basic pretty much call and texting, and it was great. It was hard to text, I can say that. I never got very adept at it, but it was just a means for communication. It was nothing more. And that feeling of being tethered to your device, it was never permeating, process or something that, hung over our lives like it does today. It was just, your usual phone. If you had that experience of what those phones were like, it's pretty simple and it's pretty wonderful. And we should at least have the option to be able to have what kind of technology the level of technology that you want to have in your life. And so I think that's also where I started with this passion, is that I just want to have the option. I want people to have the option. And if you choose to have more minimal relationship with technology, that is your choice at the end of the day. And the fact that we are being forced into something right now that perhaps we aren't ready for, aren't educated for, or have the desire for, is a real grounding passion for me. And it's interesting that you say that about what your first device is, because it is what I think about constantly.
Yeah, I know. I think back to even when I was still a classroom teacher, and it's been a really long time now. The last time I was teaching high school was back in 2008, which seems like a million years ago. But I did have a few students in my class that had a cell phone. One in particular, his phone would ring during our Bio 20 class, and it would be his grandpa asking him if he could come over after school and shovel his sidewalks for him and that kind of thing. But it wasn't prevalent. Everybody didn't have one. And I don't recall what the students that did have them, what their phones looked like, but I think they were pretty basic and simple. And the only real interruption would be, for example, as I said, grandpa calling in the middle of class about helping out. So things have changed so much and so quickly. And when we look at the tech industry, and I think we hear about this more and more in the news, and really understanding the layers behind the things that are being created, it's driven so much by like speed and profit and collecting data. And with Noble Technology, you've chosen such a different path. So what does it mean to you to design technology that's more centered around well-being and human connection?
I think that like you said, that the technology right now, it's advancing so quickly. And it's also the Wild West. It's advancing so quickly without there being regulations in place, without there being a lot of the parameters that we would put in that we would have had normally. And we saw how that has caused so much harm, particularly with the advent of social media and what it's done to our children. And so for me, I wanted to build technology that has an ethical framework that takes into consideration the fact that, we have that right to choose our level of engagement with technology, and also that our privacy needs to be safeguarded. And we can't rely on our government to do that for us, because they're just not. And they don't have the capabilities to do it and catch up to it anymore. And so I think the big thing for me is that if we're waiting for governments to catch up and get this regulation in, it's not coming. They don't know what to expect either. The technology is evolving so quickly. And so how do they really bring in regulation when they're not really sure what it can do? So we have this great opportunity to build technology that from its foundation, that we can guarantee that, hey, we're just reworking this. This is not going to surveil you. We can guarantee your privacy in it. And we can just start rebuilding the user experience to be one that has an ethical framework to begin with. We want connection. We do not want addiction. We don't want to be surveilled. That's the part that I love about capitalism, is that we have this opportunity to create. We can just go back and say, hey, it was created this way, but let's just create it a different way now. We're not really creating something that's totally wild. It can be done, and there's a need for it. For me, at the core, that's the great opportunity, is that I can be the ethical framework that is lacking right now. And we can be that ethical, well option, the tech for good option, in a space that is inundated with tech that is built for addiction. So that's the opportunity, really.
Oh, and I love how you've positioned it as this opportunity to create that new choice for people. Because right now, there just really aren't a lot of choices out there. And in conversations I've had with parents, I think a lot of people are feeling stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And so many kids, and mine included, I've got 3 that are 19, 17, and 14, and they all have a smartphone with social media. And my husband and I have many conversations with them, and some of it is around like awareness building and the time they're spending, and what is it they're choosing to do or not do when they're using technology. But I mean, we can see it in our world. It's creating a lot of harm and not necessarily a lot of good. So in the situation we're in, like, where do parents start? Where do families start with making a shift or a change?
You said that you're having discussions at home, and that is the key. It is. I just really think that at the end of the day, it's about mindfulness. If you're talking about even your experiences with phones, with what has happened on your phones, or if you guys start building in parameters and rules at home, boundaries, in terms of, you can't have your phone at nighttime. You don't need it then. Or having the conversation of, you know what, today I went off social media. I didn't open it all day and it was really wonderful. Just general conversations about it, in which it makes them think. It makes them think about that. And I always encourage families to try doing a day too of a digital detox, or, where everyone is just like, you know what, we're leaving our phones. We're not gonna, they stay at home. Dad will have one for emergency just in case, but we're going to go away for the day, and we're just going to have that experience. And that's a great opportunity for further discussion as well. How did you feel about it? I think with kids, connecting to how they feel about it is the first step in really bringing awareness to how they're using their device. Because right now, the only way for them to make a change is just, they have to kind of want to make a change themselves, as well as parents placing some parameters on it. So I think you're starting with the best way, with having those conversations and just bringing some awareness into it. And then secondly, I would say it definitely is having boundaries. I really encourage parents with younger children to build a community of parents who are like-minded. And if you have a community of parents who say, you know what, it's a play date today, phones go at the front door. So that I think that we all have been through those phases when the kids come over to play and they all end up just sitting on their phones. So if you find those community of parents who are like-minded like you, or who also say, hey, my kids have to turn their phones in at 8:00. What are your rules with your kids? It just helps that conversation when you do have to be that parent that says, turn in your phone, and your kids push back. You can say, hey, I know your friends are going through the same thing. So you're not alone. All right. You can handle it. You'll be okay. I think those are good starting points.
No, those are fantastic starting points. Like, well, it absolutely takes a village when you can, have that connection and support as a community with kids. It makes such a difference. And the awareness and conversation piece is key. Even this summer, we were camping with our younger 2 for a stretch. And I challenged them before they picked up their phone to read a chapter of a book. And so I kind of made them. But what ended up happening was they got really into their books and wouldn't put their books down. So my evil plan worked even for a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, I had fun with that. So yeah, no, I think that awareness piece is so big because sometimes just time slips by and they're not even really aware of all the things that they're doing on their phone and sort of missing out in the real world and the reality that's all around them. Now, technology in schools, that is such a hot topic. There's obviously such great potential with technology as a tool for learning and engaging and connecting. But the big but, it can also create a lot of challenges and a lot of problems as well. And from your perspective, I'm curious what you think about with parents and educators, thinking, what should they be thinking about, talking about, exploring when it comes to tech in the classroom?
Tech can be a great thing. And I think that what first and foremost what schools need to understand is that kids are on screens all the time. And school is a great place for them to get off screens. It's the one controlled environment where we can do that. And we're all should be super aware now too of the harms that have come to light with this excess screen time and what it's doing to our children. And so as educators, I think first and foremost, they need to be very strategic in how they're using technology. I do like the model. I'm very familiar with the European schools and what they're doing. And they are no smartphones in the classroom, and they have dedicated technology classes in which you're going in and you're actually learning about tech and how it's built and understanding even algorithms and those systems, how they work. And that helps develop critical thinking around technology. And that, I think, right now is probably the biggest thing that we need to be working with these kids on, is this critical thinking and the understanding of what technology is doing, how it's manipulating them, what the potential is for it. And there's never been a more critical time than that, because we're seeing AI is just right now, AI is the weakest it's ever going to be. And as soon as it reaches super intelligence level, I mean, it's a whole new ballgame, and it's not far off the horizon. So for schools, I think the big part is to say, okay, what is it that kids need to learn? What is being lost that we need to pivot to? We can't be teaching the way that we did even 10 years ago, because these kids have changed. Society has changed so much. And I think it's a big ask on these schools too, because again, the technology is changing so quickly and we're having to learn how to use it. And so now suddenly they're inundated with, what do we do with ChatGPT in the classroom and all of these things? Well, I think that it's going to have to be where they're doing more in the classroom together and doing more work together, where it can't be you're just sending them with a project and they're going home and then just typing it out. I think in high schools that would be particularly challenging, where it's more of a lecture-based system. But I think that there's going to have to be some real creative thinking around that. And then also too, there is the fact that we are in this information age, but also the disinformation age. And this is really critical. And probably, I think the most concerning part right now is the fact that truth is being eroded. How is it that we start to teach these kids to figure out fact from fiction, how to verify facts, especially with AI, where we know it's going to be able to take something and send out false information so easily? And how do we teach them to be very critical of the content that they're getting? And also too, news sources aren't what they used to be. They are victims of that clickbait content, and they have to compete with that instant news cycle. And so what were once trusted news sources are no longer. And they're having to put out stories so quickly that things aren't getting verified in the right way. It's such a challenging time, but we can't stick with what we used to be doing. And we do have to kind of start thinking this through and, really thinking about how we can be meeting the needs of kids in this day and age.
Yeah, setting them up for success and those critical thinking and problem solving skills, being critical consumers of information, not just taking things at at face value is so huge because they're bombarded by so much information. And you're so right. I think really rethinking the types of learning activities students are doing in the classroom, because if the assignment is just something that they can pop into ChatGPT and hand in the next day, is that the best tool or way of assessing their understanding? Probably not. So what is a better way to support students in developing the skills that they need? And then what are better ways to assess their understanding as well? It's a whole new world, and it is changing so
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I recently was talking with someone, they were an educator, and in their school, because in elementary school in particular, children are losing the social skills and even the communication skills that we once took for granted. That was just something that they learned at home and that they learned away from school. And they said that one of their biggest emphasis now is because children are actually becoming so anxious around social situations, building friendships, that kind of thing, that they're going back to actually developing models with like etiquette. Hey, when you're going into a situation here, here's how to, here's how to behave. Kids love structure and routine. And if they know what is predictable and how they should behave, the anxiety, the stress with that situation can help be alleviated. So I thought that was just a really interesting and creative move in terms of saying, okay, these kids have these problems. So how can we meet this need? And that some of these old patterns of etiquette, it sounds crazy, but this is what's needed now to make them feel more confident and secure.
Even having to make a phone call to book their own
Yes.
dentist appointment or haircut.
Yeah. It's stressful for them,
Yeah,
right?
it's stressful. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
interesting because people text, people don't make as many phone calls and have to navigate it. Those basic people skills are so key,
Exactly.
and just being able to navigate all those social situations, as you said.
Exactly.
Now, that wellness piece and anxiety, anxiety has skyrocketed among young people. And I thought it was really interesting to learn that you're chairing the Noble Alliance for Digital Wellness and Tech for Good. I think we've established to a certain degree like why these issues and really thinking about this is so important, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of really working collectively on these challenges that we're experiencing.
Yeah. Well, I think I talked about earlier about that, the need for these ethical frameworks. And Canada is so behind in that. We don't have the collaboration and community that a lot of other nations have. The UK has a really robust tech for good community. And essentially what it is it's a group of individuals who care about the fact that we need ethical guidance with our technology, that we need guidelines. We need to make sure that we have tech that is, providing equal circumstances, that it is, it's not dividing people, and that it's not infringing upon our human rights. So in the US, actually, they have, also a very robust system of communities, mental health organizations, but technology companies, and where they're all working together to oversee new tech deployment, making sure that it isn't something that can be harmful. And if it is, well, then they can work collectively to, raise the flags and, push back on government initiatives or legislation. One of the organizations that we're working with is called Unplug Canada, and they've just launched an initiative to try to get the Canadian government to, restrict social media to the age of 16. And they just successfully got that passed in Nova Scotia. So that was a really fabulous initiative that within the Noble Alliance, that means we can be on board. We can help spread the word. We can, reach out to other partners in our community, mental health organizations who are also tapped into the advocacy world. And it's so critical right now, even more so with AI as it expands, because right now our human rights infringements are increasing regularly, and people don't notice it because it's a slow trickle into society. And also a lot of people aren't aware of what their digital rights are. And I think that a big one is there isn't a lot of education around the fact that we don't have to be forced into a relationship with technology. You don't have to have that app. You don't. You can choose how you get your information. And it's also really, really important to understand that there are very big inequalities in technology. You have to think about that there are people who are digitally vulnerable. It is 1 in 4 of us are digitally vulnerable. That means people who struggle with technology, that's seniors, people who are too young, it's age inappropriate, and then people who are just overwhelmed by technology in general. And so we have to protect those people as well. We have to keep them able to function in society. And that means that they have the right to receive their information the way they want to. Then there's also the recognition of the fact that technology is a skill, just like someone who's really good at English in school or math in school. It's the same with tech. And the majority of us are not tech savvy. And we're being shoved down this world of tech that is evolving constantly, and we're trying to keep up with it all the time. And we should have the right to just say, I don't want another app. I just want my bank statement printed and sent to me. Just to make that part easy for me. And we have that right to request it. And so those are things that people don't realize. And we need these alliance of like-minded communities so that we can help also educate, inform, drive really important initiatives and that are so critical right now.
Yeah, it is so critical. And I love that, a big part of the work that you're doing is getting these relationships and connections happening and these conversations happening. Because unless we're talking about it, it's all just sort of happening to us, and people aren't aware of the different choices that are available to them. And it's so true. I mean, I think it almost feels like there's an expectation that you need to be able to adopt these new skills or get that new app in order to be able to bank and even just do the things to go grocery shopping or, everything needs to be on our phone is sort of the way that it feels. So it's great to get that awareness out, those conversations started, because that creates those important ripples that ultimately can make some really big and positive changes for everybody.
Yeah. And that's one space too that I think with schools, they can take the lead on as well in terms of teaching kids, what are your digital rights, and get to know yourself. How do you also learn best? If they know that they don't learn well on technology, these kids can advocate for themselves and say, hey, I need a printout. This is the way that I learn best. And it's not always on the teacher because they're not going to maybe, we know class sizes are crazy now and it can seem overwhelming for them to have to do that. But just even to have that conversation with kids and say, hey, this is on you. And learn how to advocate for yourself and learn how you learn best and provide the options. Tell them that there are options there. And if they know that even from within school, then they can go out into the real world and say, hey, you know what? I don't want a QR code for this. That's not the way I want to. I mean, I know even I'm the same when I go to a restaurant. I'm like, I would like a menu. I do not want to look at it on my phone. So these are all things that are bigger conversations that as we start having them when kids are younger and with adults, we need to educate ourselves as well. But if we do have that education component in the schools and having these bigger conversations, that can help, because then even kids can be going home and saying to their parents, hey, did you guys know that we actually, don't have to put that app on our phone? And I think that would be a really great opportunity because again, how do we educate these adults who need this information as well?
Yeah, and kids are great teachers.
They are. Yeah. They're always happy to tell their parents when they know something that they
exactly. Yeah. No, as a parent, I've learned so many things from my kids. And as a teacher, that was always my favorite part, was how much I learned from students, the ways that, sometimes they challenge the things you say, or they ask really good questions that make you stop and think, and you engage in some really interesting discussions. So young people are certainly a great place to start in terms of initiating those conversations and then having them continue to be curious and talk to the adults in their lives as well. Now, when you think about the future, for you, what would a healthier, more human-centered relationship with technology look like? So that could be, in families,
Mm.
out in the wider community, in a school environment?
My broad vision is that what I would like is technology that gets back to its original purpose, which is serving us, not the other way around. And I hope for technology in which I can have a device, my laptop, my phone, that I get it and I don't need to add to it. So, meaning that a lot of us are overwhelmed by the amount of subscriptions and apps that we have to do. And for me, what I want is I want a device that comes. It is secure. It is running on a VPN. I don't have to add it. I don't have to pay a fee for it. It has a management tool ingrained to just take care of my pictures. It has data security built into the actual architecture and the hardware of the device so that someone can't just take your data without you knowing about it. And these kind of things are being built, that it's out there. And then now what we need to do is just take it, put it into these devices and say, okay, here you go. You don't have to add anything. If you care about security and safety, then this is yours. And especially with AI, it's going to be so much more important when even our image needs to be protected. It's something that I think that as we move forward, we have to have to be able to protect ourselves and to protect also the reality of who we are, because it can be taken out of context and can be turned into someone who we aren't very easily. And this is, for me, the vision, really, that we can have technology that doesn't do all of this. It's just, which is exciting that it's possible. It is possible. It can be done. And when people say, oh, this is just the future, we have to embrace it. But hey, we can have a future with this technology. And the wonderful thing is when you do have restrictions in place in terms of, okay, I don't want it to surveil. I don't want it to manipulate me. I don't want it to put me in a vulnerable position or take away my privacy. When you put those restrictions in place, people are brilliant. They can innovate. They can do these things. That's the beauty of capitalism as well. And so that's my vision, and it can be done.
So then I'm curious about the first device from Noble Technology. So I believe it's called BE.connect. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is. It's a smartphone that looks like what you and I would use. The biggest feedback that we get from families and kids is there's twofold, in which parents don't want anything on their device that can bring their kids back to their device, and kids want a device that looks cool enough to be able to use. So knowing that it is modern, it is everything that a kid would expect to use on their parent's phone. But it's basically, we've taken out all the vulnerable points. So the camera has been removed, which is one of the biggest problems in schools. And as we know, child exploitation and the selfie environment. I mean, we've all been there with our kids. If you know, they spend one good solid year of their life taking a lot of selfies. And so we've removed that. And then there's no app store, there's no games, there's no internet browser. It is essentially call, text, maps, alarm, calendar, notes, weather. That is it. And, our target market is definitely the child smartphone market. But at the same time, because it's designed to be one that anyone can use, it's also the perfect phone for seniors. We have a voice assist on it as well that is its own app. It doesn't do anything other than the functions that are on the device, but you can say, set a reminder to take my medication at 2:30. And, they don't have to interact with their phone. And so with BE.connect, it's unlocked too, so you can just easily add it to whatever plan that your family already uses. And it's the basics. It's everything they need. The worst they can do is they can crank call grandma, and which we used to do. And it's also something that is available for any of us, really. I think a lot of us would be open to using a secondary device where you say, okay, on weekends, I want to stay connected. And so this is my secondary device. And also for, teenagers, it's a big question where people say to us, I'd love for my teenager to use this, but how am I going to possibly give this to them? And the reality is you don't have to take away their smartphone. Be open to a secondary device, and you say, listen, you can have your smartphone and your Snapchat, but there's a time and a place. This phone, BE.connect, goes with you to school. It will keep you productive. You will still be in contact with your friends. You can still call them. You can still text them. But the other device has a purpose, and it's more for entertainment. So there will be parameters around it. And being open to that is, I think, a really great first step, because it gives also kids the opportunity to recognize how they're using their phone. And it is a great way for parents to juggle that conversation of saying, I'm not taking away your social life that you have on Snapchat or whatever else. However, I am just saying that this is my expectation when you go to school, that you're going to be productive. So this is the goal and the vision with BE.connect. And from there, then we'll have the next device be more, in which we'll then progressively add functions back into it. So we'll have an email on there. There will be an internet browser, but everything will be running off of a VPN. We'll have data security and privacy and protections in place and embedded into the device. And eventually, the goal is to have an app store as well, in which it can feature, there's tons of people out there doing some really brilliant things with safe kind of like chat rooms or something like that are really built for just connection and family and friends. And so, you hope that you can have those things, but then also that you'd be able to put your bank on your phone if you want to, but that we've protected it. If the bank is having their app on our devices, they can't surveil you. They can't demand of you to go back to your phone. All of these things, that this is the greater vision, and BE.connect is definitely the first step and the most needed first step.
Oh, that all sounds very exciting. And I love how when building this framework and having these conversations, then it's that journey and in meeting those needs, but in a different way, and having people become a part of that vision and that framework that aligns with the values and objectives that you've set out. So is BE.connect available now, or what's sort of the plan with that?
We're taking pre-orders.
Amazing.
So, yep. And it's, we're hoping to get enough pre-orders that we can go to launch. I mean, we're ready to go. It's just more launching and having the funds in place to be able to do so without having to go to outside investment, which is always a bit of a challenge when you are a company who is going against the grain. We find it time and again where we have to be able to find someone who is coming on board and financing us in a way that they're going to have to be aligned with how we're doing this. And it's hard to find. So we're launching right now with pre-orders, and hopefully we can just find enough people who care about this and want to see this come to life, that we can do so in a way in which where we can keep our autonomy and keep the greater vision in place and really get that ecosystem of tech for good built, and then be able to bring in people and investors and partners who are aligned and who really get what we're trying to do and understand the need for it as well.
It certainly sounds like an incredible and exciting journey ahead. And, as I've been listening to what you've been sharing today, like teaching and learning and education, like those themes just run through all of that. And I'm wondering, if you think back to your journey, and you can go back as far as you like, do you have a favorite teacher or somebody who really influenced you, encouraged you, supported you along the way?
Well, I have two favorite teachers for probably two different reasons. But first one was my grade one teacher, Mrs. Fisher. She was fabulous. I mean, just the most lovely, amazing woman, creative, warm, loving, and just the best first foray into education you could ever have. And then my next one was, I think it was grade 9, Mr. Goodyear. And the reason I loved him is that he had a very unorthodox way of teaching us, in that his style was repetition. And he was my science teacher, and I wasn't particularly good in science, but he had it that we had our first module, and where we had a test every single morning when we would come in, that we had the core components where it was, okay, we're writing about, I think it was heat. If I'm going to say it was something about the chemical reaction with heat. And we had to write it and get it. And each week, and gradually there would be a little bit more that would be added, and then he'd take out some, but then they'd come back. But it was that repetition. And I have never learned better in my life. We had once a month an exam as well, but it was always the questions from early on mixed with the new, and you would knock the ones at the beginning out of the park. You'd be like, yes. And that having that self-confidence as you went into the exams, there was less stress. You're going in and you're like, okay, I know I'm going to do amazing at the beginning part. And so if I don't have that bottom part down pat, but by the time we got to the end, we knew that part. But the irony is he actually got in trouble because we all had such good grades. I know.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
I know. Yeah. I found it interesting too, though, because we all did so well on the grade 9 provincial exam as well. So you'd think that there would have been a balance, but anyways, it was very successful. And I remember that to this day. And I studied always the rest of my life after that with just keeping, all of the information there and knowing that I'm that kind of learner, that I loved that, the repetition. And so I did that, carried it on through all of my university years as well.
So absolutely 2 humans that have had a lasting impact on you, which is fantastic.
100%. Yeah.
Those people really stick with us. And I also am curious, when you look back at your journey so far, and I mean, you've had a shift in your career along that journey too, but what would be something that you would consider to be what you're most proud of?
I'm going to say actually with this journey, this more recent journey, is I'm proud of the fact, number one, I've always been a curious person. I do like to learn, and I like those light bulb moments when something kind of, ticks and you go, oh, that's why. I love those. I would say I'm probably most proud of the fact that this last part, this is a big journey. And so many people say to me all the time, they're like, you're going to go against like the Googles and the Apples of the world. What are you thinking? Why would you do that? And it can get overwhelming. And I think the big thing is that I've been so resilient because I am so passionate in the fact that no one is building this. If I don't do it, who else is going to? I know I can learn it. And, am I really a threat for the Googles and the Apples of the world? Because they make all of their money off of, subscriptions and their app store. They don't really care about the device at the end of the day. So they're not going to care about me right now. If I become a threat to them eventually, amazing. Dream come true right there. So, that's probably what I'm most proud of, is that I've stuck with this journey, and that I've stayed confidently passionate about what it is that I'm doing, and then the knowledge that it will make the world a better place. And also that I want this device for me, my kids, my grandkids. Keeps me going.
Now, if you could sit down with somebody that you would love to learn from, who would that be and why?
Okay, this might throw you for a loop, actually. This is not going to be expected. Klondike Joe.
Okay, not expected.
Do you know who that is? Okay.
The name sounds familiar, but tell me the story behind that.
Yes, I've been obsessed with him for a very long time. He is someone that I think I will encourage every single Canadian out there to learn and look up, because the man is a legend. Number one, the thing that always about him was that he was a storyteller extraordinaire, which I'm very jealous of. I love those people that can go in to sit down at a dinner and just hold court, but they're not arrogant. They're just, really those people that are engaging. And the word is that's who he was, and that he was a charmer. And essentially, the legends are many. He, at a very young age, became an adventurer, went to sea. He was from Ontario, but decided he wanted to go to just become a sailor. He, at one point, jumped on a shark to save his other friends. Like, it is crazy. Then he decided he was done with that. Then went to the Klondike, where he saw people panning for gold and was like, that's ridiculous. That is going to take way too long. And built the mass mining projects and figuring out mass mining. And then he decided he built a hockey team at Dawson City Nuggets, I believe they were. And then they decided they would go to the Stanley Cup, and they went there by dog sled, canoe, riverboat, train. It took them over a month to get there. They got there the day before their first game, were exhausted, of course, lost the first game 9-2. And then like the next one, it holds the record for the biggest loss in the Stanley Cup. It
Oh
was
no.
26-2, I think, or something.
Oh no.
And then he went overseas and decided he would travel around there, became an international man of espionage, and became the savior of Romania by interrupting some sort of Russian invasion, carried on a torrid love affair with the Queen of Romania. And they have statues of him up there to this day. So there you go. Klondike Joe.
Okay. Wow.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So somebody that has lived quite the life and has a
Yes.
lot of stories, that would be a very full conversation, I'm sure.
Hey, and I mean, the epitome of a Canadian right there.
No
Like, just,
kidding.
yeah.
No kidding. And then as someone who is obviously like you're an incredibly curious person, you're a lifelong learner. I've heard some of the learning that you're doing on this journey that you're on, but is there something that you'd really love to learn about or something you'd love to learn how to do?
I think now I'd be drawn to physical learning, meaning creative outlets. Like, I think that I'd like to learn how to paint or maybe cross stitch. I don't know, like something that I think as all of us, even I feel this, where I'm always on my devices and I'm just, it's always there. And I would love to do creative pursuits now and something where I'm using, my physical being and also my brain away from my screens. Yeah. That would be my next step, I think.
Well, there's lots of interesting options out there. So it'll be
Mm-hmm.
neat
Yes.
to see what you end up gravitating towards. And my final sort of main question that I'd love to get your thoughts on is, we've talked about how education plays such a big part in everything that we do. So obviously in schools, but also outside the classroom, in our communities, in how we live and play and explore and build relationships. And I'm wondering if you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom to share that could empower or support people with their own teaching and learning journeys.
I think the biggest thing right now is remember the importance of the human connection, that community and collaboration is probably the greatest learning tool there is, that we live in this time where we're so immersed in our own heads. And the healthiest way to live is to be out of our heads, to help other people. When you're feeling, in that things are very, I think there's a lot of fear mongering and a lot of worry about the state of the world today. And I'd say the biggest thing that we need to do is just remember the human connection, that people are inherently, on the whole, the majority of us, we are foundationally, even if we have different beliefs, we are the same. So like really, we care about the same things. We want, we love our families. We want to have a home. We want to, have a wonderful community. At the end of the day, we share a lot of common beliefs. And so I think that's the biggest thing now is let's get back to remembering the importance of the human connection. And we can bring that in schools as well. We can be bringing in and building communities or, engaging with the community. My kids were lucky enough to go to school in Germany. And one of my favorite things is that they're very, very big on building independence there, which I think is also very critical in this day and age for children. We weren't allowed as parents to drop them off at school. And they were given a map by the school of where they had to walk and which friends they had to pick up along the way. And then there were safe houses that were senior citizens in the community who were designed to, their job was to see the kids and make sure they were all okay as they walked to school. And they would wave and, the grandma would sit on the porch and watch them all and make sure they're all okay. I loved that. Loved it. And it made my kids feel safe and happy in their community. And the community was so connected in that sense. And it made my kids also very street savvy and aware of their neighborhood. And those are the things that I think we need to get back to building and connecting with. I think that's the great opportunity right now, is recognizing the value in our shared human being, really.
I love that message. And I think it's such an important and powerful way to end our conversation today, and I thank you for that. Tara, I just want to thank you very much for your time and this opportunity to chat with you, get to know you, hear your stories and all your wisdom today. If our listeners are curious and interested to learn more about you and all the amazing things that you are up to, where are the best places to find you?
Absolutely. They can go to our website, www.mynobletechnology.com. They can also follow us on Instagram at B.techhealthy. We're out there. Just look us up. They can just Google Noble Technology as well. It is that simple.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for joining me today, Tara. It was so lovely to connect with you and to get to know you and learn from you.